My name is Andrew Novoselac. I am the manager of the Rails infrastructure team at Shopify, and we are here to do some lightning talks for you today. The theme is new stuff we've built for Rails 8.1. But first, just to introduce us, this is our team, a nice moodily lit photo taken by Aaron Patterson recently. So there we are. What do? We work on Ruby and Rails at Shopify. So we help other developers use Ruby and Rails better. We help improve the framework and the language and the other tooling in the ecosystem to help developers at Shopify and developers in the ecosystem like yourselves. That's the mandate we have. I'm going to keep the intro short and sweet. So there's some QR codes you can scan if you want to look at our blog or the Shopify careers page. And I'll put this back up at the end. So yeah, today we're going to talk to you about some new stuff that's in Rails 8.1, courtesy of us. This is everything from some big new features to some small quality of life improvements and bug fixes. And yeah, stuff we're really excited to share. So without any further ado, I'm going to call up our first speaker, Jenny.
Whoa. The music is very nice. Thanks, Andrew. Hey, everyone. I'm Jenny, and today I'll be sharing a story about eliminating Postgres not null violations. So this story begins many years ago, some say to the origins of Shopify. The Shopify monolith is built on MySQL, and over the years, we've been doubling down on the features it provides, and there's a lot of queries that use MySQL-specific SQL. We don't necessarily want to be tied down to one database technology, and over the last couple of months, some people on my team, like Hartley, Nikita, Mikey, some others, and myself, have been uncoupling our monolith application code to support multiple databases and leverage active record more for our queries. We've been running tests on Postgres to identify MySQL-specific behavior and fix them. So when we ran tests on Postgres, we noticed a lot of not null violations with the ID column. Looking at a lot of these cases, the code kind of looked like this, where there was an insert all, and we're building an array of records through their attributes. So looking at this closer, if we have a list of objects and they're new, the ID will be nil. And when you take the attributes, there's going to be a hash with the ID key, and the value will be nil. When this is put through an insert all, MySQL, it works with MySQL because MySQL would just use the auto increment value to determine the ID value, while for Postgres, it thinks that you're actually trying to put nil as the ID, and this will fail because ID is a not null column. A simple fix to this is just to remove the ID column for the insert all. However, it's not super that simple. In this example, with customers, we are using an upsert all. So in this case, there are some records that we want to update, while some are new records and the ID column is nil. To use our previous fix, you could just remove the ID from all the new records, but this won't work with Rails because all objects being inserted must have the same keys. Another solution, a solution to that is that you can split into two queries, one just to insert new records, and another query to update existing records, but we shouldn't really need to have two queries. A better solution is that if there is an ID that is nil, we can just set that to the SQL default. So it'll tell Postgres to use the default function or the auto increment. But why do us developers need to handle these nil values? Wouldn't it be better if Rails does that? well, I did put a PR to do exactly that. So the core bulk of this PR is that when Rails is parsing the values list, if the key is a primary key column and the value is nil, Rails will automatically use the connection's default insert value, which in most cases is the SQL default keyword. So for Shopify, this eliminates the incompatibility between MySQL and Postgres. But for all of you guys, if you have a Rails app running on Postgres, this is just a simple change that so that you don't need to worry about handling nil values for primary key columns when insert and upsert all. Thanks for listening. And next up is my awesome colleague, George, that will talk a little bit about logging.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm George on the Rails Infra team, and I'm a developer. So today, I want to give you a sneak peek on the new structured event reporter in Rails, giving you an overview about its capabilities and why you should get excited about its release. So in this quote, DHH gets right to the heart of the problem. As he put it, when you want to aggregate the data from your Rails app into an observability platform, it's a real pain trying to parse the developer-focused log lines that Rails spits out by default. So the quote perfectly captures the problem. On one hand, we have unstructured, human-readable log lines, which are great in development and for manual inspection. But what Rails is currently missing out of the box is structured logging that can be easily digested by observability tooling. So for years, Rails developers have had to choose either transform unstructured logs to make them queryable or build a custom structured logging solution from scratch. So quickly taking a step back for some additional context. As mentioned, Rails provides developers with the ability to create unstructured logs like the one you see here. These logs are generally one long unstructured string. And with the right tools, data platforms like Splunk can parse these logs and make them queryable. For years, our monolith had a custom logging solution built on a system just like this. Splunk is a powerful tool and great at text search. It can take a long unstructured string, parse and extract its fields into key value pairs, and allow us to query previously unstructured logs. So while this worked for a while, with the increasing size of our monolith, we recognized a need for a better solution to reduce both our observability costs and query speeds. And with that, this let us develop a new structured logger API into Rails directly named Rails.event. So compared to unstructured logs, you can quickly see the difference, as instead of a long payload string, structured logs have a clearly defined event name and payload data defined as keyword arguments, enabling data platforms to easily send these logs to a database and make them instantly queryable. We set out to standardize a structured logging system that wasn't yet another custom solution that would only work for Shopify's needs, but something more flexible and upstreamable to Rails. We wanted an opinionated library that helps developers do the right thing and log structured events to as many upstream platforms they wish to send logs to for analysis. In our case at Shopify, our logs first get sent to Kafka as a stream of events, which are then processed and stored into a ClickHouse database. Our in-house version of Datadog Observe sits directly on top of this database, allowing developers to query structured data efficiently in real time. So setting this all up on your end is straightforward. In your Rails app, you just need to subscribe to your consumer, and then within the consumer, you'll want to define the emit method. When an event is created, the event reporter API in Rails will call the emit method on all consumers. So in this pseudocode example, we build the log data, serialize it, and then lastly send it to Kafka. Coming soon to a Rails near you will be a new first-class structured event reporter. It's designed to live alongside Rails.logger, not replace it, allowing you to keep your developer-focused log lines for development or for debugging, while enabling you to use the new event reporter for queryable production-grade events. As shown, structured logging provides a handful of benefits, including but not limited to being faster to query, costing less long-term for storage, being type-safe, and of course, being uniformly formatted. And that's pretty much it. The event reporter will soon be open as a PR upstream to Rails in the coming week, where you can leave your review and thoughts. So thanks to these folks, Adriana, Jill, Robert, and Francis, who were instrumental in the structured events work at Shopify. And thank you for listening. So next up, I'll be handing it over to Jill, who will also talk about some cool filtered logging work that she's planning on shipping into Rails.
Hi there, I'm Jill, and I'm here to talk to you about sometimes logs may betray some of your sensitive secrets. And the reason that I know about this is because I've found this to be the case in 2 large Rails applications. And I will give you a little bit of background and talk to you about what I found and then what I'm adding. Rails is so quick to get up a new application, and that's the beauty of it. It's so helpful to just scaffold something really quickly. So I scaffolded this in all of like 1 command in 10 seconds. This is just an application that has credit cards in it. The only line that I added is on line 28, where I just added one of these unstructured logs that George mentioned here too. Super quick, super simple to get in here. And it's really helpful to get all this stuff in. And if you want to see like what's happening, it's really easy to debug. In this case, we are looking at, and Rails by default automatically logs all the request parameters that are sent to a controller. So it's really great for debugging that your request parameters are in here and that the credit card digits are in your request parameters. But doesn't this get sent to the third-party data analysis platforms that are all over people's production applications? They are. Is that HIPAA approved to send your customers sensitive data? Like there's definitely some data that you want to see in there, but there's other pieces of data that you really probably shouldn't be sending to your third-party analysis platforms. Is that going to be secure if they get a leak? It's not the nicest thing to do to your customers. Luckily, Rails does have a filter parameters configuration that you can add and that you can make sure that anything that's sensitive that you want to keep out of these logs can be filtered. It's in the configuration file. Lines 6 through 8 have like new Rails applications. These are the default things that Rails by default filters out of the logs. And then in my application, I just added digits in here because that was the credit card digits thing. So if you have just a newly generated Rails application, you can see this view from before where it has all the credit card information in here. If you add it to filter parameters, it has this lovely look in here that says it's filtered, which is great, super helpful. But when you start scaling your Rails application and you start getting hundreds of models, start doing things like that, you don't need to read this. I mean, this is what ends up happening in applications when you get a whole bunch of sensitive information in there. Then you have this configuration file that's not in the MVC. It's kind of hidden in configuration, and you're not necessarily thinking about this every time that you're adding a new attribute. Every time that you're adding something new, you're not looking at the configuration to remember to keep it out of the logs. So as things get bigger, like how can we make this a little bit easier for Rails developers? Well, we do have something called filter attributes, which can live on the model. And you can just define that on credit cards, digits is a sensitive attribute, and you don't have to worry about like finding it in your configuration. And because every day you're working in the MVC structure, you're looking at that model and remembering, oh, hey, like this is sensitive information. I can keep it out of my logs. So that's a solved problem, right? Well, the issue with filter attributes is that it only filters some things and not others. So here's filter parameters, filters both the parameters that are coming into your application and the manually created logs. Not so much with filter attributes. It only filters the things that are in manually created log messages and not the parameters that are coming in. So if we're talking about the pre-existing stuff that exists in Rails, can you guess what my addition to Rails may be for Rails 8.1? This is just a quick PR that I put up. You can scan the QR code or check it out here. It is not yet merged. It is in the process of being reviewed. You can check it out. You can kind of see how the sausage is made here, but it addresses the problem. So coming up in Rails 8.1, really simply, you can go into all of your models and define what is a sensitive attribute in Rails and make sure that when you're in the development process, in the day-to-day, it's a little bit more visible for you and a little bit more manageable than a big list and configuration. So there's more work to do here. There's lots of things like iterating in this whole process to make it better. I'm going to be around at the Shopify booth if you want to chat about it, but I'm really excited to help everybody make their applications a little bit more secure, filter data a little bit less. Next up, we're going to hear from Nikita, who is a fantastic person and secret karaoke machine.
Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to talk and ask a simple but important question. Do you test your tests? When we write tests, the goal is to catch bugs in our code, but sometimes we have tests that don't actually check anything. They just run. This is where Rails helps us. Rails can warn us if we have tests that don't make any assertions, ensuring our tests are truly verifying our code. Let's take a quick look at how that works. Yes, I know it's not Rails 8.1. It's been introduced a while ago. Hopefully, many of you have had the opportunity to use this feature. But Rails 10.1 introduced a handy feature that warns developers when a test case doesn't perform any assertions. The feature is an after teardown hook. It finds a test with 0 assertion, and if the test that wasn't skipped or errored, it will warn you with the test name and location. This way, you can catch and fix tests that aren't actually verifying anything, which will keep your test suite reliable. While the Rails feature is specifically designed for Minitest, the principle is still universal. Whether you're using Minitest or another testing framework, or even a different programming language, the intention is the same. Ensure your tests actually check what they're supposed to. Now, let's have a look at this Minitest output. We've got 8 tests that run, but notice something important: 0 assertions with no skips or failures. This is a perfect example of why the new Rails feature is so helpful. On the surface, seeing 0 failures might make it seem like everything is fine, but 0 assertion tells a different story. There is a high chance that these tests aren't checking any useful condition, and thus they're not actually verifying our code behavior. This is why testing frameworks emphasize the importance of assertions. A passing test suite doesn't necessarily mean that your tests are validating the expected outcomes. With the Minitest output showing 0 assertions, it's time to dive deeper into the types of tests that might pass without any assertions. These are the tests that execute code, but often they fail to validate any outcomes. We'll explore a few of common examples. The first one is a test that passes if nothing raised. This test runs a method, doesn't raise, and if it passes if no exceptions are thrown. While it does ensure the code executes without any error, it doesn't explicitly verify any specific behavior or outcome. It's relying on the absence of errors as the validation rather than checking for expected results. So to address this issue, at the very least, we can make an improvement and explicitly check for any error not being raised. This test will still rely on the absence of exceptions. At least it ensures the intention is clear and the test framework is actively verifying that no errors occur within the block. The next type of test is an environment-based test. This test will only run the assertion if a certain condition, in this case a database adapter check, is true. If the condition is false, the test effectively does nothing, resulting in no assertion being made. The tests like this can be problematic because they depend heavily on the runtime environment, potentially causing them to pass without actually checking any behavior if the condition isn't met. At the very least, you can use skip to make it explicit when the test condition isn't met. Using skip ensures transparency, but comes with a caveat. Even when the tests are skipped, their setup blocks still execute, potentially consuming resources. In an environment like Shopify, we use a distributed execution model, which means an empty test will still be allocated to a worker and execute. A more effective solution, especially in environments like Shopify, where we treat skip test as something we need, as a temporary solution, and something that needs attention in the future, is to not define the test at all under the condition. By conditionally defining the test, we avoid cluttering our test suite with test cases that are irrelevant to the current environment. Our next example will focus on iterating over the collection, like in the following test. The issue here may arise when the collection, the published post, is empty. In this case, the loop won't be executed, which will result in no assertions being made. The test then passes by default, potentially missing important validation. To tackle this issue of potentially empty collections, we modify our test to ensure it always performs meaningful check. The revised test has a published post.empty check with a flunk which will fail the test if the collection suddenly becomes empty due to changes to our fixture files or any kind of database setup mechanism. It will signal that the expected data wasn't available for validation, prompting developer further investigation. The next one is a generalized version of a test that would rely heavily on mocking or stubbing. In this case, we are using minitest mock to verify that my method is called with the expected arguments and returns the expected value. The key issue here, or the potential issue here, arises when we don't do anything to verify that the method is being called. In this example, we use mock.verify, which at the very least will fail the test if the my method wasn't called. But a better alternative for minitest would be to use an assert mock helper, which is an actual assertion and does increment the assertion counter. But as I mentioned, overall, this is a bad example of the test that relies heavily on implementation details and doesn't assert or test any kind of application behavior. For those of you working with RSpec, while it currently lacks counter for expectations, there is an open issue for this feature pending implementation. So if you are interested, this could be a great opportunity to contribute to RSpec. Overall, finding tests without assertion is a great chance for open source contribution. This is a great reason to explore an open source application or a library and make your first contribution. Whether it's going to be enhancing test tools to catch assertionless tests or adding a new feature, this is your chance to dive in the open source world and make an impact. Personally, relying on the feature, I was able to make a few contributions to Rails, removing or improving some assertionless tests. So I welcome you doing similar thing, and thanks. Next, I invite the host of this Lightning Talk show and our team lead, Andrew.
All right. Who is just about ready for lunch? Yeah, I am. So we have one more. I have one more lightning talk to share with you, and then I'm going to go get a Philly cheesesteak personally. So I invite anyone to join me. Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Rails Error Reporter middleware, which is new. It's coming in 8.1. So who knows about the Rails Error Reporter or uses it in their app? Anyone? You should use it. It's great. So the Rails Error Reporter is a unified way to report errors in an app. It works with a subscriber model. This is pseudocode. It's not the code in Rails. Actually, sorry, this is a demonstration. So yeah, you can add some subscribers. So here we have a log subscriber and a metric subscriber. And then there's a method for like handling an error. So if an error is raised, or if we just pass an error to the report method, then it will fire off to those subscribers. So this is what it looks like under the hood in Rails. This is like a kind of a pseudocode version, but basically it iterates through each of the subscribers and sends a report to them with the error and some of the other metadata. And then each of the subscribers implements a report method. So the log subscriber is sending our error to the logs, and the metric subscriber is sending them to statsd in our case, which is what we use for metrics at Shopify. So yeah, this was implemented back in Rails 7. And to be quite honest, at Shopify, we did not do a very good job of actually implementing it in our app. We had just one subscriber, which was called public exception.log. This was a God class that had a lot of reporting concerns all mixed together, logging, metrics, bug tracking stuff, other stuff, whatever that is. It was very hard to reason about what this thing does. And we found that often when like changing code for one of the concerns would like accidentally break or affect some of the logs coming for the other, changing the logging concern would like accidentally break something in the error tracker, which would like drive everyone crazy. Last year at Shopify, we had this big push to standardize our error tracking. And as part of that, I tried to do a big refactor of this and use the Rails error reporter more how it's meant to be used with multiple subscribers. So my goal was to go from public exception to 4 subscribers: error tracker, metric subscriber, log subscriber, and a query timeout subscriber. That way they could all have their own concerns and like be tested individually and isolated from each other, just like Rails intends. But I ran into kind of an issue, which is how do I share code between the subscribers? So they actually have some overlapping concerns that they all want to do. We have an exception classification system. We also walk the backtrace to find out who like caused the exception, and that lets us like tag the team. And all the subscribers care about that. So the problem is like we would end up with some duplicate code in each of the subscribers. And some of this stuff is maybe a little time consuming. So we could also be doing duplicate work if we're not careful. So yeah, that's a picture of me. I started thinking about how I can solve this. I thought of some like really naive and not very good solutions. Like what if I just like stuff this on an instance variable on the error itself? So, okay, I'm gonna do all the work to get the error classification, and then I'll just like put it on an instance variable, and then one of the other subscribers can like pull it off. Obviously, I mean, maybe not obviously. Obviously to me, this code is really not nice. Like here's an example, maybe I put it into a concern that they can all share, but I don't really like messing around with the instance variables on the error. So I thought, it seems like Rails is like missing something for this case where I want to share code. And it was, I added this with my friend Sam, my coworker Sam, we added this middleware. So the middleware is now sitting between when you call the error report and when we actually call all the subscribers, and it lets you add some extra metadata to your error report that you can then fire off to all the subscribers. So what that looks like is, again, this is like pseudocode. The code in Rails is a little more complex, but this is roughly what it looks like. So we have 2 middlewares here. For example, there's an error attribution middleware and an error classification middleware. And what happens when we call report or handle as well? We go through each of the middlewares and we inject them with the context. So the middleware, we call the middleware, and then the middleware is able to update the error context with any extra metadata that it has. Then that's the context that we pass to all the subscribers. So the middleware themselves have a very simple API. They just have this call method. And what call does is it takes the error and the context. We can do any code that we like. So here we're using our error classifier to classify the error, and then we're getting that classification and we're putting it on the context. And then we return the context. And then that context hash is passed along to each of the subscribers. And yeah, this was a big success. It led to us having a very nice, like, clean architecture for all our reporting. So now we have 3 or 4 subscribers. We actually ended up with quite a few middlewares with different concerns, and we were able to extract those into a gem. So now all of Shopify has the same middlewares and all the different Rails apps that we have and some of the same subscribers. So yeah, this was a very nice success, taking one gigantic like 500-line class basically and kind of composing it in all these little parts. So yeah, highly recommend using both the error reporter and once you're on Rails 8.1, the middlewares as well. Yeah. Oh, one gotcha. Yes, sorry. One gotcha I want to call out about this is that the context is getting mutated. That's something to really remember. So we're passing this context between each of the subscribers. And so we need to know, or you need to know that if your logs are, if in this case, I have a PII middleware, which for some reason is adding someone's personal identifying information to the context, which I don't know why you would do, but maybe it's something you would do. If later on in one of our subscribers we're splatting out that context, then we're actually going to be logging some of that PII. So the one call out is that this is now like a mutable context that's coming through like all of the middlewares to your subscriber. So yeah, that's one caveat. Yeah, happy error reporting. That's it for me, and that's it for Shopify. So here is all of our blog and our careers page. Thank you. Enjoy lunch and come find us at the booth if you have questions.